But I'd like to explore what they have been doing, but also how this whole retreat this week can contribute to the new strategy development for the RED Plus work in FAO. So we know that already at the end of 2015, globally the Sustainable Development Goals were approved. And then this year later, the Paris Agreement came into force, within which the countries have submitted their nationally determined contributions, the NDCs. And they are very significant, both of these global agreements, since, for example, in the UNFCCC context, about 145 countries have included forest, agriculture, land use, the whole AFLU sector in their nationally determined contributions. Majority of the countries provided that in the context of mitigation, which is the traditional RED Plus agenda, but also many countries included forestry and land use and agriculture, all sectors, as part of the adaptation agenda. And now that we have these international commitments in force, that has an impact to our work in FAO and certainly in the RED Plus team and the National Forest Assessment team. And I think the biggest change is that we are moving now from the readiness to implementation. So we need to respond to countries' commitments in these global agreements and really shift our mindset and our contributions to the implementation of these agreements. And what does it mean for these two teams? I think it means that they need to continue and even strengthen their really great technical expertise and contributions at the technical level that they provide. I'm not aware of any other international agency that has such a robust and technically solid technical contributions than FAO and in particular in the RED context, of course, the RED Plus and the NFMS teams. And I think I can give you just one example. There are many, but for example, in the past year, or a little bit more than a year, FAO's RED Plus team have supported more than 70% of the submissions that countries have provided to the UNFCCC on the reference emission levels. So that's quite significant because that's reference emission levels are one of the key, if not the first step almost, at the Warsaw Framework implementation. So, and in reality, what really this new phase means to these teams is to really continue the technical expertise, but expand on that. As I said, we have evidence that the countries are demanding our expertise, and we have good results. We need to expand on that, expanding the scope of the work we're doing, but also go more even in depth. And in a bottom line, we need to use really our technical expertise and our comparative advantage to the fullest extent possible. Yes, on the comparative advantage, and I think that would lead to the expanding also what can we do in terms of the building the elements for the new RED Plus strategy in FAO. We have focused in the past, or an entry point for FAO's work on RED was MRV, or forest monitoring. And this certainly needs to continue, and it will be a key pillar in the RED work in the future. But we have so much potential to contribute much more than that, and use the full comparative advantages of FAO in forestry, but also in the agriculture. Again, this is a unique house with this expertise that doesn't exist anywhere else, and we would need to use that. So go beyond, keep MRV, but go beyond MRV, and I think this retreat has given us a lot of good ideas how to go about that. So the Vision 2020, or in broader sense, the new RED Plus strategy for FAO, in my view, would have, I could highlight 4 key points. First is, as I mentioned already, moving from building the capacity for RED Plus readiness to the RED Plus implementation. I think this is a major shift that we need to look into that. And then, as I mentioned, also move from only MRV to actually addressing broader elements of RED Plus, these policies and measures, including investment strategies, agroforestry, restoration, governance, tenure, law enforcement. I could go on and many areas that also these groups have identified here. But this is to say that we have such technical expertise that we need to be using more. If we do not do that, then there are others that will take that place. And also that in terms of combining more the agricultural aspects and looking more broadly in the drivers of deforestation, we really need to contribute, and RED has a catalytical role to contribute to actually to the drivers of deforestation and make sure that we contribute to the transformational change that is needed in the agricultural sector. And of course we need also the transformative investments to make that happen. So we need to think big, we need to think more broadly as we have done compared to what we have done before. And the third point would be moving from only addressing mitigation to actually look into what kind of adaptation benefits RED actions contribute to. Because on the ground level they do so, but we tend not to think that as part of the package. And at the same time, in most of the developing countries, adaptation agenda is even higher, and certainly is higher in the agriculture sector. So RED can contribute a lot to the adaptation, and this is the new thinking that we would like to come across with. And finally, to say that, and also what has been the evidence from this retreat, that the new RED strategy should be really cross-sectoral, should address a lot of other things that are other teams in forestry department or in FAO are addressing, and working together across the different sectors, looking the bigger picture, looking the land use sectors as a whole instead of only forestry or narrow parts of forestry. And obviously this new RED Plus strategy should build on the Paris Agreement and the NDCs, but also the FAO's new strategy on climate change.